And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Scarlet Fu, taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast. It has started. Tim Stenovec is in the radio booth. Emily Grafeo by his side today. Carol Massar has the day off. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. Tim Stenovec, a mixed day in markets, down on the S&P 500 and slightly higher, though, on the NASDAQ.
Yeah, I mean, slightly higher on the NASDAQ. And I guess, like, I kind of was expecting to maybe talk about bank earnings or maybe the CPI data. But I think what is bigger for the indexes is what we heard from Nvidia and AMD earlier today. And the government officials telling Nvidia that they're greenlighting export licenses for the H20. That has shares of chip companies higher.
Speaking of what's moving today, Bitcoin is down 3%. Now, of course, this was after it hit a record high of 120K yesterday, but it is interesting to see not as much movement in the indexes, but crypto is really on the move today.
Especially after that House procedural vote on the crypto measures failed. And I mean, I'm not going to say that stocks are necessarily falling, but they definitely have drifted to the downside.
We should talk about the idea here, too, that just how lopsided the trade is. I'm glad you brought up the chip stocks, because when you look at the NASDAQ 100 and the fact that it's in the green, basically that's all Nvidia, as well as some of the other chip makers like AMD and Broadcom. Without them, we'd be deep in the red. And it's a similar story for the S&P 500, Nvidia, Broadcom, Microsoft, basically the biggest contributors to the upside for the S&P, but that's not enough to overcome the downdraft, Tim, that you're getting from Meta, Tesla, and names like that.
All right, we'll see what happens tomorrow with Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, and a host of other companies that are set to report this week, Romaine.
Absolutely. As we get the closing bells here in New York, I guess at some point we will actually see them here on this Tuesday afternoon. The Dow Jones Industrial Averages looks like it's going to close out the day lower by roughly about 1% on the day, down by more than 400 points, closing in right around that 44,000 level. The S&P down by about 25 points or 0.4%. The NASDAQ Composite higher just by about 0.2%. But the big laggards, of course, were in that more cyclical space. Dow Transports down 1.6%. S&P 400 mid-caps down 1.8%. And the Russell 2000, Tim, down an even 2% on the day.
Hey, you make a really good point, Romaine, about the massive stocks that were lower in the S&P 500. Kind of shocking to see this. Only 47 stocks in the S&P actually moved higher today. We had a whopping 455 move lower. Kind of speaks to the fact that some of the big names did move higher and kind of makes it a little lopsided for the day.
All right, and you can certainly see how lopsided it is when you look at the sector performances. That big chunk there is information technology, the biggest sector in the S&P 500, up 1.3% because of gains in chip companies. Everything else is lower. In fact, you've got 6 sectors finishing down at least 1%. The worst performers are materials, losing more than 2%. Healthcare and financials also down at least 1.5%.
All right, well, let's take a look at some gainers. Actually kind of easy for me to find them because I did start with chip stocks. Nvidia shares finishing the day higher by 4%. The company said it received assurances from the Trump administration that sales of its H20 AI chip to China would be approved. This is a dramatic reversal by the White House. This move coming late yesterday, crossing on Nvidia's blog. Late yesterday, U.S. government officials told Nvidia they would greenlight export licenses for that H20 AI accelerator. This, according to the company late yesterday. Shares moving higher by about 4% today. We also saw a move higher from AMD as well. Also, let's talk Citigroup. Look at this. Shares rising to the highest level going all the way back to 2008. A 3.6% higher on the day, 3.7% higher on the day. The bank said it would ramp up stock buybacks following a strong result in regulatory stress tests. Citigroup's traders also rode the tariff-induced volatility in markets to their best second quarter in 5 years. Revenue buoyed by record trading volumes in the quarter. Once again, Citi shares higher by 3.7%. And MP Materials shares surged today. You guys might remember we had the company's CEO, Jim Litinsky, on our air just late last week. Shares surging today by close to 20%, the highest intraday level going back to April 5th. Apple committed $500 million to buying the company's American-made rare earth magnets in a multi-year deal. Apple and MP Materials will establish rare earth recycling line in Mountain Pass, California, and develop a novel magnet materials and processing technology to enhance magnet performance.
Yeah.
It's part of Apple's pledge to spend more than $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. Shares of MP Materials higher by 20% today.
All right, let's get to some of the decliners. Wells Fargo was among the worst performing S&P 500 companies today. Fell about 5% to finish the day after a miss on second quarter net interest income. It also lowered its full year guidance for NII after another quarter of tepid growth. So interesting here to see that divergence in the bank earnings right now.
All right, I just want to jump in because we did get earnings from Omnicom. And it's not just the big banks that are reporting. This is the advertising agency, the company reporting second quarter revenue that met analyst estimates, $4.02 billion, just slightly above the consensus estimate of just under $4 billion. Second quarter adjusted EPS of $2.05. That does beat the consensus estimate of $1.98. The stock moving slightly higher in the after-hours trade by 2%.
All right, and back on those decliners, BlackRock, after hitting a record high here on Monday, is now down 5%. It closed the day down about 5%. And it was headed for its worst earnings day drop in more than a decade after revenue and performance fees missed estimates in the latest earnings report. BlackRock, of course, is the world's largest asset manager, and total assets actually did hit a record $12.5 trillion as the company continues to grow into private markets. It grows its ETF business, particularly that crypto ETF lineup, really powering some of BlackRock's growth here. And yet, traders just wasn't enough here to quell traders' concerns about that revenue miss, that stock falling. And then finally, Newmont dropping today following the resignation of the company's chief financial officer. This is one of the world's top gold producers, falling about 5.7% to finish the day. And they announced yesterday after the close, Carolyn Ovalman tendered her resignation last week, and the company didn't disclose a reason for that departure.
All right, let's take a quick look at yields. We did see a lot of activity there, a meaningful move higher, particularly on the longer end of the curve, something that's been playing out now for the last few weeks. Your 30-year yield now pinned at that 5% mark. And you're also seeing the 20-year yield also camped out there as well, further steepening along the curve with your 10-year yield, flirting with 4.5%, and your 2-year flirting with almost 4%. And of course, all of this tied, of course, to a repricing of expectations around the Fed after that big CPI report this morning that seemed to suggest, at least for right now, no rate cuts, at least not to the largest extent that was priced into this market, are coming. Meanwhile, we go back to earnings and take a look at J.B. Hunt, the trucking company, moving higher in the after-hours trade after reporting second quarter EPS. They came in a penny higher than street estimates, $1.31 on the bottom line, $2.93 billion in revenue on the top line. That was also a slight beat in dedicated revenue, also coming in higher than expectations at $846, we'll just round it up to $847 million. That intermodal revenue number, a key metric there, in line with estimates at about $1.44 billion.
Okay, a quick break from earnings to talk a little bit about deficits in Europe and some European countries. Have you guys ever wondered how much a holiday actually costs a country?
I do.
Okay, well, it's a good thing you wondered that because we've got some answers. France is actually considering axing 2 public holidays. They're trying to do this in an attempt to tackle the deficit. If you canceled 2 holidays, remember they have 11 public holidays a year, which about the same as federal. It's about the same as federal holidays in the U.S. in most years, compared with 8 days off in England and Wales. So, kind of equivalent to what we have here in the U.S.
Holidays are the actual number of days?
What do you? Sorry, say it again.
Because some of their holidays are like a week long.
No. These are just 11 public holidays. But there are businesses are closed for a lot more than that.
Yeah.
If you've ever been there in August.
Yeah. Like, are they taking into account the 2-hour lunch break?
No.
The 8-week vacations that Romaine's referring to?
They're not taking that into account.
Just disappear to.
Okay, if you canceled 2 days, according to the Prime Minister, you could give a boost of several billion euros to the country. So,
wow.
I don't know.
What is that in francs?
It doesn't matter anymore. It's on the euro now.
Oh.
Okay?
No, I forgot.
Well, speaking of euros,
Frexit.
Brexit.
It has a good ring to it, Romaine. You should try to make that stick.
Sure.
Did it work out well for the UK?
It did not work out well for a couple other folks. Yeah.
Most of the exits have not totally worked out.
No.
All right, let's talk a little bit about other companies affected by the tariffs. Kerrygold Butter says that it's planning to slow down its U.S. investment because it needs more clarity on Trump's trade settlement with the European Union. And of course, if you ever bake and you use Kerrygold Butter, I mean, that's kind of the only way to go.
Hold on.
What?
Wait, you bake with this stuff?
Yes.
Oh, I just eat it straight out of the dish.
No, it's amazing when you bake with it. You kind of have to.
Oh, game changing. Now when we discovered this butter a couple of years ago, like everything in our home changed.
Yeah, that's why you got to bake with it.
Kerrygold, what is that? Plugra? Was that like, isn't that like Austrian or German? Yeah, all those European butters.
You know you're special if you come over to the Stenovec house and we take out the Kerrygold. Yeah. If we just break out the normal butter,
Stenovec household, and they gave me nothing.
If you just break out like the normal butter, like you're not special.
The Trader Joe's butter.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Kerrygold is the good stuff.
All right.